Distortion, distorted guitars, it's so 90s, man. Isn't it like for Nirvana and rock and roll music? I mean, modern music is trap and R&B and pop music, right? It's Justin Bieber. Why are we talking about distortion and harmonics anymore? Harmonics and distortion are used in every single genre and modern music more than ever before in the history. I'm here to prove it to you, okay? So we're going to talk about this in this mix series. We're going to talk about harmonics and saturation when you're mixing, mastering, and why they're so important. Why is distortion so important to modern records? Let's get into it. All right, to start this conversation out, I want to give you a little definition here from Wikipedia. Distortion is the alteration of the original shape or other characteristic of something. In communications electronics, it means the alteration of the waveform of an information-bearing signal, such as an audio signal representing sound or video signal representing images in an electric device or communication channel. So there you go. We're just changing the characteristics, okay? It doesn't mean what you think distortion means, okay? Now, this is what I highlighted. Distortion is usually unwanted, and so engineers strive to eliminate or minimize it. Why? Why, Wikipedia? You're so wrong.
Why?
You're so wrong about us trying to minimize distortion and get rid of it. It's absolutely untrue. Every plugin today, I mean, shit, I'd say 75% of them are adding some sort of distortion. If you're talking about compressors, you're talking about saturators, you're talking about the Neve console plugin, I don't know, just pick a plugin. Anything from waves, they're all adding saturation and distortion and harmonics, and our ears love it. We love harmonics. We don't want to just hear a sine wave. We want to hear information and fuzz. And why, though? Why? That's what I want to get into. Why do we like it? First of all, I'm going to play you a little snippet of my song that I'm working on. It's called 15 Minutes to Midnight. And yes, I do play this a lot because I'm about to release it, so I'm excited. But I want to play it with and without some of these plugins that are adding this terrible distortion, okay? So let's start by just all the plugins on. We got... And then I'll point out the plugins that are actually adding the distortion and saturation. And we'll talk about what color they're adding and why and all that good stuff.
When you walk by, all I stare, you light up the room, floating high. But you never waste a moment on my mind. With just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone.
Okay, so let's focus on the vocal. Let's focus on what distortion does to the vocal. Now, a lot of people are like, the vocal doesn't sound distorted. It sounds crispy. It sounds nice. It sounds like it's cutting through the music, right? That's how we get things to cut through the music. That's how we get that nice crispy edge. It's called distortion. It's harmonics. It's saturation. It's everything in between. All right, so let's talk about just the things on this vocal chain, okay? Now, here's the lead vocal. Let's just look at that. Let's focus on the lead vocal. The first thing that is going to be adding any sort of distortion or saturation is going to be the CLA3A. Every time you open up a plugin that is modeled after its analog counterpart, you can bet your ass it is adding distortion and saturation. How is it doing that? Through the circuitry that these analog counterparts were built with. Meaning it had input transformers, it had tubes, it had output transformers, it had op-amps, right? It had these different things, iron, nickel, copper, steel, things that saturated the signal that added to the fundamental of the signal. What's the fundamental? The fundamental is a sine wave. It is the information in the vocal, right? If I'm going, ooh, it's a perfect little ooh. And here's the best part. Whatever you're hearing right now on my microphone as I'm talking to you on YouTube has saturation on it.
Oh, hell no!
Oh, here we go. It's going through a Neve 88RS console input, which has saturation. It has input transformers, right? These consoles have a bunch of wires and circuitry. It is saturating the signal. It is adding distortion, harmonics. What else do we have? Oh, 1176. Interesting, right? So we're talking about a limiting amplifier that has tubes in it. It also has input-output transformers, right? These all have some sort of saturation. A Pultec EQ has tubes. It is a tube EQ. It is saturating the signal and adding harmonics, which is distortion, which is what Wikipedia thinks we'd like to get rid of. We'd like to get rid of the distortion. Now, I understand where Wikipedia is coming from. What they're actually trying to say is, you know, if I'm talking on this microphone and it goes, that's distortion, right? There's a lot of different types of distortion. Now, what I'm going to focus on is the distortion that comes from distorting a signal, pushing into an op amp, into an input transformer, into a tube that is saturating and adding. It's going to be adding harmonics, right? It's going to even give you, it's going to give you even or odd harmonics, right? So it's going to give you the 1, 3, the 5, or it's going to give you the 2, 4, 6, right? And those things together are going to add dimension. It's going to add fatness and thickness, and our ear loves it. That's why we love analog. We love vinyl, right? We like saturation.
Nice.
Now I'm going to get through this chain and I'm going to show you exactly why and what's doing saturation. Okay, so the CLA3A, that is going to be saturating. No matter what you think about any of this stuff, right? Whether you're like, no, that's a clean one, bro. It is the CLA3A. It's modeled after the 3A, right? So there you go. That's saturating. 1176 from Universal Audio, which is Yuri, you know, like the Yuri 1176. This has saturation in it. It has tubes. It has op amps. We're pushing in. We have an input. We have an output. We're saturating, right? It's a saturation. It's adding to the fundamental of the frequency. Again, CLA2A, another thing that is saturating and adding distortion. Oh my God, here, I'm actually doing it really on purpose here, right? RC20, retro color. What is this? Tube pair. And this is literally called distortion, right? So we want distortion. Why do we want distortion? Because without distortion, our vocal sounds boring and it sounds flat. This microphone is a TLM 103, which literally means transformerless, okay? So it's clean as hell. I like this mic because I can go in and I can add the characteristics I want to add to it, as opposed to paying $10,000 to $20,000 for a microphone that is going to add those characteristics through the tubes and the things that are built into the microphone, right? Because I don't want to have to go and like test a bunch of microphones. So I just get something that's clean and basically colorless, right? And then I can add the distortion. I can go through my outboard gear. I can go through my preamps. I can go through the things that are going to add the tones and the harmonics. We love harmonics, okay? So these are things that are all adding distortion and harmonics, okay? I even have a little altar boy here, which is absolutely adding harmonics and distortion because there's even a drive knob on it, and I'm adding drive on there, right? And then, yeah, so that's about it. That's all the stuff that adding harmonics and distortion. But let's talk about why that really matters. It really matters because when I have a sine wave, it's boring to the ears. When I have a complex waveform and we start to distort and give harmonics to it, it actually thickens not just in this plane, right? Right here. It actually also thickens in this plane that goes deep. So any reverbs, like for example, if I hear reverberated sound and it's just a very clean sine wave and a reverb, like it's boring. But if you distort that reverb, you bring out harmonics and you bring out all the depth and you can hear the end of the tails of the reverbs, which makes dimension happen in your mix. It makes depth happen. It makes width happen. It makes things pop out. It makes things feel like you could touch them. They're breathing. They have life to them. And that's why we love distortion. So never, ever think that you want clean. You want clean, 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 clean. You're going to sit around, you're going to try to clean everything, and then you're going to throw a UAD Neve 33609 on it, and you're not going to think that you're adding distortion? Fucking dumb. You're high.
Oh my God! Wow!
You have to understand distortion is life. Distortion is thickness. Distortion is depth. It's width. It's everything that gives our music energy and gives our records the sound of a record. Okay? So all this distortion, all these different units that are modeled after analog counterparts, using the actual analog units, right? All these things, we want the distortion because it colors. It's like when you see Bob Ross, right? And he's painting trees and he's like, I'm doing the trees, right? And then he does like the little puff, 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 puff. And then he draws the mountains. And then he puts something in the forefront, right? That's distortion. All the distortion is all the blurring. When he does a little, I'm blurring, that's what you're getting with saturation. You're taking this thing and you're adding things to it. So now you got this thing here, and then you're just adding these little distortion elements, which give dimension and give placement to this thing here. So it gives it depth. It gives it perception. It gives you everything that you want. You want something in the foreground. You want something in the background. You want something up front. You want something to the sides more. You got to use distortion. Not just panning, not just reverbs, not just tails, but use distortion, harmonics, and saturation, okay? And that's the really important thing that we're getting out of this. Hopefully, that makes sense to you. Let's look at the master bus just so you can really like understand why it's so important to get distortion. I mean, shit, I even got like, look at this drum bus. It's got NLS 1, 2, 3, 4 times, all different stuff for the distortion, the harmonics of these consoles. They're Neve consoles, they're SSL consoles, they're British, you know, they got all the different consoles. They're giving you the drive, they're giving you the distortion. That's what it is. It's all distortion, guys. That's what I'm getting to. Distortion is love, it's life, it's thickness, it's depth. And that's how you make your mixes good. That's how you make great records. All right, I digress. This mix series is more of like an artistic approach to distortion. I'm not going to get into the science of harmonics and dude, here's what a triode versus a diode versus a pentode versus nobody fucking cares. Again, go read the manual. Go read the books. I'm not here to teach you that. This is not a college course on distortion theory, okay? This is on making your records better. Use distortion. Use harmonics. Use the things that bring color and breathe life into your music. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to distort your shit. That's it. Love you guys. Hit the like button. Put a stupid comment down there that says like, dude, this didn't teach me shit. I don't care what you do. That's what it's about. I want to teach you guys what I know about the art and the science of music. Music production, mixing, mastering. And look out for 15 Minutes to Midnight coming out in July. I'm really excited. I'll give you a little bit more of that.
Night, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your